What's up there, fuzzballs? Fluffmeister Riv here, and I'm going to tell you all about Alamo City Furry Invasion 2025. Alamo City Furry Invasion is one of my favorite furry conventions every year, and this year was super special for me because I was one of the guests of honor. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole GOH experience in this video. This is more of a general breakdown of the convention. I'm going to save that for a separate video next week. Some of you may be like, fuzzballs, that's the most creative thing you can come up with to call the audience this week? Well, it's going to make sense in just a second because that was the theme of ACFI 2025. Fuzzballs, as in Spaceballs, the Star Wars parody from the 1980s that many of you are probably too young to remember. Ask your parents. It's really worth a watch. It's hilarious. It was a really cool idea for a convention theme. I've never seen anything quite like it before. Just like every convention has a theme, almost every convention has a charity. And the charity for this year was Be Positive Pet Rescue. And they raised $12,659 for the charity. Way to go, generous furries. Actually, $265 of that was an item that I contributed. I'll get into that in a little bit. This year's attendance was 1,859 people. It wasn't a huge growth over last year, but I think there are some reasons for that. First of all, it moved to a new hotel this year. We'll get into that in just a second. And some people from San Antonio who are used to being able to drive, 10, 15, 20 minutes back and forth to the con might have been put off by the fact that it was a little further away. Second of all, it bumped up against BLFC. BLFC obviously is a huge con. It is now a weekday con, and it started like a day or two after ACFI ends. So anybody that wanted to go to BLFC probably didn't go to ACFI. The attendance numbers really aren't a big deal to me. First of all, smaller cons are nice. And second of all, I think the growth may happen like it did with Megaplex a year to 2 years after they move into the big new convention space. So let's talk about that big new convention space. It is impressive. If you remember from past years, ACFI was in the Sheraton over by the airport in San Antonio. It was the right place at the right time, but the convention definitely had started to outgrow it. The convention space was pretty tiny, like 14,000 square feet. The convention space at the new hotel, the Embassy Suites in San Marcos, is 3 times that big, and you could really feel it. It felt so much more open and less cramped. They were able to bring in tons more vendors. There were more panel rooms. They were bigger. They were better set up. It was just overall a better experience. The hotel is a little bit more expensive than last year, but for that extra money, you get a lot. You got a full suite for every room. Like you have a living room area and a bedroom area separate. You get free breakfast and you get 2 free drinks for happy hour between 5:30 and 7 p.m. The big rooms were very nice and comfortable, and you can legitimately fit 4 roommates in there without feeling overly cramped. The location in San Marcos is great, especially for somebody like me coming from out of town. There's a ton of restaurants and stuff to do in the area. There was a 7-Eleven right down like 2 blocks away that you could walk to. There was a liquor store, supermarkets nearby. It was a really convenient location. And with all that extra event space, they had 71 separate events this year, which is pretty impressive. 3 of those actually were hosted by yours truly. Of course, there were all the events you would expect, like the dance comp, fursuit games. They even have a car show at ACFI every year, the Tails and Taillights car show. It's kind of become a tradition, and it's really cool. I'm going to have some footage of that toward the end of the video, actually. So I personally hosted 3, like I said. On Friday, I hosted my normal video content creators panel. That one, I think, is kind of hitting its expiration date. I think I'm going to retire that one. It wasn't very well attended. I tried to get away from using a PowerPoint, and I just ended up umming and ahhing and stumbling through the whole thing, and there weren't that many questions from the audience, and I kind of ran out of stuff to say, so that one wasn't so great, but the next one is the one that I love doing now. That is like my new favorite panel. It's the Belfour and Lupin Fans Meetup. I get to introduce people to the show, and we got to watch 2 episodes. Thankfully, the panel room that I was in didn't have anybody in it afterwards, so we were able to cheat a little bit and go like 5 minutes over and get in 2 full episodes. That was a ton of fun. Thank you so much to the events crew for doing a great job. This year, they were able to accommodate a last-minute request to move me to a room with a bigger screen for the BNL fans thing, and that was really appreciated. They did a great job. On Sunday, my final event was actually filming for a music parody video with a giant banana. So it's going to be a parody of the song Rosanna by Toto, but it's going to be Banana. And this all tied into what I wanted to do for my contribution to the charity auction. So basically, it was a bunch of fursuiters playing around with a huge inflatable banana to the song Rosanna, which once I get the vocals recorded will be Banana instead. And then I took the banana to a ton of people in the artist alley and dealer's den and had them draw art on it. It was covered with art by the end of the afternoon, and it got sold at the charity auction, which was super fun. Another event I participated in was similar to the Hot Ones YouTube channel, where people eat hotter and hotter wings progressively as they get asked questions. ACFI has a furry version of that, and I learned something about myself that I didn't know. I am apparently impervious to super hot sauce. Like, some of the people around me who were doing it were just dying on like the second or third wing, and I was just like, eh. So yeah, I guess I can eat really hot sauce for some reason. Maybe I should start doing like spicy food challenges. That was a whole lot of fun, and I actually didn't end up getting asked any questions, so it made it even easier for me. All I had to do was eat hot wings. All right, so how about my personal experience with the con? How did I enjoy it? Well, I loved it. I was very busy being the guest of honor, but that didn't stop me from doing plenty of stuff. I had the evenings free to chill out, hung out with friends, ended up spending Saturday evenings sipping on wine and sitting around in a super chill room party playing Cards Against Humanity. I definitely had plenty of time to just chill. I didn't really end up going to a whole lot of other people's panels just because I was kind of in a time crunch running around doing so much stuff. I ended up driving to the convention, so my journey started on Tuesday. Why did you drive if the con was paying the guest of honor to fly? Well, I elected to drive because I needed to bring more fursuits. Since I was the GOH, I wanted to have multiple suits there for people to take pictures with and just for me to be able to switch suits now and then. So it was like a 13-hour drive from my home in New Mexico all the way down to San Marcos. The first day was kind of boring. I split it into 2 days. The second day got a lot nicer. The route took me down through some rural areas, through the Texas Hill Country, which is one of the most scenic places in Texas. So the drive was actually pretty enjoyable, at least half of it. So on Wednesday, I arrived at the hotel, dumped my stuff off, went up to Austin to the airport, which I'd never been to before, to pick up one roommate, picked them up, brought them down, dropped off their stuff, then went to the Amtrak station to pick up the other roommate. Now, I'd originally had 3 roommates. One of them dropped out. Then another one ended up coming into the room. They were not able to get themselves to the con, so I decided to pay forward some of the generosity of the con comping the room for me, and I bought them tickets on Amtrak to get them from Fort Worth down to the convention. So we all got settled in sometime around like 9 p.m. on Wednesday. There wasn't really anything to do on Wednesday night, so we just chilled. Thursday came around, and they're trying to make this into a 4-day con, and they're working on it, and it's happening slowly. There were some events on Thursday, but not a whole lot. Basically just did registration pickup and chilled again. The con really came to life on Friday. On Thursday night or Friday night, we ended up hanging out with somebody who was friends with the roommates who I hadn't met before, and it became apparent they had gotten scammed on their room, that they didn't actually have a room, that somebody just stole their money. They ended up asking to stay in my room, and again, paying forward that generosity, I said sure. It was a little hectic having 4 people, but the big suite made it a little bit easier to get people's stuff out of the way, and we had a lot of fun. They were great roommates. Now, of course, no con is complete without something going wrong. Not a whole lot went wrong at this con, but a couple things happened. First of all, on Thursday night, I was getting ready to suit up in Lurks to go downstairs. I was kind of having to contort myself in a weird position, and I heard something that sounded like Rice Krispies in my lower back. Now, I have scoliosis, which means my lumbar spine is not exactly aligned perfectly, and if I get twisted into a certain position, it can pinch a nerve, and I can be in pain for anything from a day to 3 weeks. I was worried this was going to ruin my con when this happened. I hit it with some ibuprofen really fast. Unfortunately, I didn't have my prescription muscle relaxers with me, but things worked out, and it hurt a little bit throughout the con, but it wasn't that bad. It was something that I could just ignore. So that was a bullet dodged right there. There was also a little bit of a snafu with the one roommate who came in on Amtrak. We slept too late on Monday morning and missed the train. I had to buy him a ticket on Greyhound to get him back to Fort Worth, but it all worked out and it was good. Other than that, things went really smoothly. Considering the con staff had a brand new space to work with, they did a great job fixing problems as they came up. Now, I got to see a few behind-the-scenes things that the general attendees didn't. There were some issues with the registration badge printers and stuff like that, but they got it all worked out. They got the fires put out as soon as they popped up, and they put on a great convention. I had an absolute blast at the convention, and I'm going to tell you all about the experience of being a guest of honor next week. So way to go, ACFI staff, for another awesome convention. Now, even though I was the guest of honor, I'm not going to spare you some constructive criticism, because that's how everybody improves, is people being honest. Now, I don't have any big complaints about ACFI. just one small one that I think could be better. I think they could have done more with the theme, especially at opening and closing ceremonies. Now, not that there wasn't a lot of work put into the theme. Rexy, the con's videographer, as they do every year, put together like a 40-something minute movie related to the theme. It is amazing and took so much work, but you had to know where to find it. You have to know to go to their YouTube channel to watch it. It was like a 6-part series, so if you didn't know that, you might not have found it. Of course, they had good artwork all around the space related to the theme, so it was there. It just wasn't as immersive as maybe it could have been. And I realized moving into a new space, maybe there wasn't as much time as there would have been otherwise to put together a whole bunch of theme-related stuff for opening and closing, but I felt like that could have been done a little bit better. Not a big deal. No con is perfect, and I'm certainly not perfect either. So now comes the time in the video where you're like, hey, you're going to play a bunch of footage of fursuiters running around and being silly. We can't wait to watch that. I hope you like cars, because all I was able to film was the car show. I was so busy this year that I didn't have time to film a bunch of like random fursuiter stuff, so I do apologize to that if you were waiting, but I do have some footage of the car show, which was really cool. There's a lot of customized cars, a lot of cars with furry themes, and it was just a lot of fun to check out. So thanks everyone for stopping by. Thanks to our super amazing generous patrons for supporting this channel, and on with the car show we must go. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone, and we'll see you again next week when I talk about what it's like to be a convention guest of honor.